Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. I'm joined, as always, by Kyle Ferguson. And Kyle, I'm very excited today. Do you know why I'm very excited? You're muted.
Why is that, Garrett?
Well, one, because we've continued with the long tradition of one of us being muted during the intro of the show, but mostly because we are joined by a very special guest today. As you can see if you're watching the video form, we are joined by the lead Battleground designer from the Heroes of the Storm team, John DeShazer. Dude, thank you so much for coming out. I'm sure it has got to be just insane over at Blizzard HQ right now. BlizzCon is 2 weeks away. I can't believe you had time to do this.
It's pretty intense right now. It's a lot of fun. We get to see a lot of unique stuff getting finalized and finished up. I mean, usually we're kind of getting close to done here, but we always have a couple fires to put out, so it's always exciting.
Well, that's good. That's good. We have a live chat room, and I'm sure everyone's going to be yelling, "What are you announcing at BlizzCon?" But we don't expect to actually get an answer to that question, so we won't even bother.
All right, sounds good.
How's Brawl looking around the office? It's out now. You guys pretty happy with it? Get a good
Absolutely.
turnout for it?
We love Heroes Brawl around the office. I mean, obviously you guys saw it when it first came out last year at BlizzCon when we first started playing around with the idea of the Heroes Arena, and we fell in love with it back then, and we've just kind of been adding more crazy and unique stuff on top of it. And man, do we have a lot of crazy stuff coming out for you guys soon. It's really, really fun to work on this project.
That's awesome. I love the silent giggle in the back of your voice. It makes me very excited to see what sort of torturous things you guys have come up with. Now, before we started the record, we were talking with you, and you said you're actually like head or manager of sorts of the Brawl itself.
Oh, we just use the term product owner, and what that means is it's just kind of the guy that kind of holds the vision of the project in its entirety, trying to make sure that a lot of the story elements, the vision elements, and all of it kind of wrap up into one cohesive experience that matches what we're hoping for Heroes Brawl to really do to our audience and for our players, and hope everyone has a really good experience. And that was kind of my main goal. All of my teams that I got to work with were so great that I honestly got to do very little when it comes to the PO perspective. And I just got to end up designing and making a lot of really fun brawls. And every once in a while, I got to go into meetings and make a big decision and feel important. But like I said, overall, most of the people were making great content. So I just got to go give a lot of thumbs up and just kind of move on from there.
So make the big decisions. So can we find a name for you like Dustin Rocks Browder? I mean, are you John Orb Dispenser DeShazer, or anything have your special signature on it?
You can work on that if you want. I don't have one around the office, though. Sorry.
Oh, great. Well, is there anything, though, like in the game that you can kind of point to and be like, yeah, I champion that. That is in there.
That's my baby.
Because I got loud in a meeting.
I definitely did champion the regen globe generator. That is something that I thought would be really fun to have added to the game. From creating a 2-lane map, a lot of times we have to do a lot of weird balancing factors to make it still match our expectations. Like when you do a questing talent that has a lot of you need to get regen globes to hit the max to get the special reward. You didn't want to pick those on 2-lane maps because there wasn't enough regen globes to make it effective. And one of the ways which we wanted to do is we added a regen globe generator to Brax's holdout to kind of allow that balance to exist. It also gave a point of contention for players to fight over that we thought was really fun. We actually had, when we first installed it, I think we had a little too much incentive on this mechanic. And so we had huge just 5v5 to the death matches over a regen globe because it's 5 seconds per respawns and not let them have it. It almost became a source of pride. And so we would just slaughter everything as if it's like a tribute. And so it was kind of a fun mechanic. And then we slowly learned that, it's not that important. It's good. It's fun to get. And also with we also had regen globes back before they got buffed. So and that was when we thought they were important. So now it's even more important with the new buffs to them. So it's just kind of that whole balancing factor.
That's interesting. I like the dispensers over something like the Battlefield of Eternity boss, which drops if you win. You're already winning, so you kind of spiral forward in that way. But those can be their own kind of parts of the map. Do you ever think a little devious about it? Like, I'm going to put a sight tower on this map because I know people are going to go nuts for it.
Well, yes, of course.
Yeah,
Warhead Junction, I think we kind of just wanted to put a sight tower there to see how much of a beginning of the game brawl we could have. We knew it was interesting because it's such a large map that if you had a 5v5 over that watchtower at the beginning, you were not going to make it to the way bottom. It's too far unless you're playing Falstad or if you're playing some of those other very global heroes. And so it became more of a deciding factor. We also saw that in Black Arts. It's a very far map to travel to your bottom lane, but everyone's like to have that 5v5 initial fight over that watchtower. And it's kind of a fun testing ground to see how your team stands up versus their team right at the beginning of the gate. And I don't know how much of a deciding factor that is for a game, but it's really kind of fun to see, oh, we got first blood, or we wiped them and we took a tower because of it. And we kind of a fun moment. Really, though, when it comes to watchtowers, they're a huge power pie of sight because we don't offer a lot of sight mechanics in our game. And so they usually get weighed pretty heavily on our design side. And we end up usually cutting them out of most maps. Like Braxis had 2 to start, and we went, oh no, this feels like Haunted Mines too much. Cut them. And so we're very hesitant to add them, but we do like what they do to the game.
Well, we all just sat behind the wall. I gave a countdown. We're all ready to go after the draft. I mean, as silly as it can get, I do enjoy that environment. And it's a good way for everyone to judge, let's avoid this team fight in the middle. We have a objective team of sorts, maybe on Battlefield Eternity, you went that Lenara and that Li Ming, and you just don't have a front line to actually engage in something like that. So nowadays, when you're designing, let's say, something entirely fresh, how much science is going into it? How much background research? Is everything very kind of figured out? Like, we only have hallways ever maximum of this size because we need to make sure a mosh pit fits perfectly in this one, and then these bushes can only be that far? Or do you just sort of wing it and see if it's fun?
We do a little of both. Like Towers of Tomb of the Spider Queen was probably the most scientific map we had because I wanted to make a very small battleground that had very little choke experience. Because since you get to each other so quickly and since the fighting was so intense, we wanted to avoid having a lot of moments where you could get body blocked from entering back into their side of the map or invading theirs. And so we made it so that you could only ever have a choke point before or wider. And whereas Cursed Hollow, there was a lot of 2s and 3s, and I'm referencing like the engine units here, so that doesn't have a great reference for players. But if you think of Cursed Hollow around some of their really tight chokes, that was like a 3-unit choke, whereas on like Tomb of Spider Queen, the thinnest it ever got was 4, and that always allows 2 fat heroes to pass each other. So like an Asmodan and Stitches could always like walk past each other, so there would never be too much heavy body blocking from left to right. There is that one point on that map where I break the rule, which is just going south of the middle lane, where there's like that 1 unit difference, where like the fog is, and you go down to your bottom turn point. But overall, that map really avoided having too many heavy chokes. When we develop new Battlegrounds, we really are aiming at, I guess, designing it so that they vary. We want Battlegrounds that are sometimes choky, like the Battlefield of Eternity is kind of choky. Cursed Hollow is very choky. And then there's some battlegrounds we feel very open. Infernal Shrines is a good example of a battleground that we really try to avoid having a lot of jokes, and it was very open. And that kind of matched the mechanic of a Punisher kind of stomping around, beating up everyone. And we didn't want a lot of body blocking and choke fights dictating that kind of experience, since there's already so much chaos infused with just the map mechanic itself. And so when we develop a battleground, we definitely think about the map's mechanic. We want to make sure that we think, okay, is this going to be a map mechanic that will, benefit or get really detracted from heavy choke experiences? Do we want to use a lot of bushes, or do we use too many? Like, I actually kind of feel that we use too many bushes overall across our maps. It makes us, a lot of the more fragile heroes, very dangerous to use when they try to transfer from one lane to another. And maybe we could pull back from that. And so there's actually a battleground that I'm not going to talk about in any heavy detail, but we're working on it right now, and I'm using way less bushes, and we're going to kind of see how that tests out and see if it feels good or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we even had, I know we had a question in here originally just asking how much Dahaka plays into your Battleground design because of bushes, but it sounds like it's not just Dahaka. It's not the only reason you're concerned about how many bushes or how many smokestacks are in a Battleground.
Oh, well, Dahaka, I think he's definitely a hero that we always put into consideration when we build a Battleground. He has that global presence. I've actually moved some bushes away from major objective points on this most recent map, just so that he can't instantaneously like invade an objective. That doesn't mean I want him to be punished because I'm trying to cut back on bushes. So I have to tactically put bushes there where people might go, why is there a bush here? This doesn't really get any use. And it's really actually just a travel point for Dahaka. So it's there. It's not going to really get gameplay unless one hero exists on that Battleground. But we don't want to forget him. We still love that hero. We still want to make sure he is considered valid. And so those kind of considerations do come into play, but they're more like, okay, the Battleground's done. How does Dahaka stand up on this Battleground? Is he really hating the fact there's no bushes? Yes. Okay. Where can we put bushes in that we feel would be useful?
Okay. Wow. What? I hesitate to ask this particular Battleground. Will we hear about it at BlizzCon? Is it a further in the future thing?
It's much further.
Okay.
A lot of our Battlegrounds are usually take about 9 months to develop, and designs at the very beginning of it. And we don't usually start to announce it towards the end of it. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait some time before you hear about this Battleground.
I will say
we will have some cool stuff at BlizzCon. So don't worry, you're still going to hear a lot of really epic stuff about Heroes Storm.
And we did just get 2 brand new Battlegrounds.
Yes, you did.
Be thankful.
I mean, I'm not sure how much you listen to the show, but I think Kyle and I have been just wishing as much as possible, like little kids to Santa, for StarCraft Battlegrounds since Heroes was announced. So we're both pretty happy at the moment.
I loved working on StarCraft Battlegrounds. One of the interesting things about it was I work on Team 1, and Team 1 was originally the StarCraft team here at Blizzard. And so we have a lot of legacy developers that worked on StarCraft. And so it's probably the most scrutinized set of Battlegrounds I've ever worked on here, where they're like, no, that's not StarCraft. This is StarCraft. And they would argue merciless, it was brutal about how much they wanted specific elements. And it was like heavy discussion about if I could, inject a Guardian into Braxis Holdout because I wanted to have, a legacy StarCraft 1 unit that didn't survive into StarCraft 2. And so there's a heavy debate about that because there was a design decision about what would change to the Broodlord. And so it was just this really interesting experience about, because I wasn't part of Blizzard back then, so I'm getting a lot of insights about why they made decisions about StarCraft while developing maps. And I thought it was actually just a really fun experience overall. It's just cool to see what these legends of StarCraft were and why they made decisions, and it was cool.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Now, is there any tidbits you kind of hit around Warhead Junction? Because we've all kind of sort of figured out Braxis at this point, but Warhead Junction is just a big question mark for most players when you're drafting or actually playing it.
Oh, you mean how to play it?
Yeah.
Well, that's probably one of the... We like that Battleground because it is the largest Battleground to date. So we haven't made a Battleground this large yet. And I don't know if we're going to make one any larger. I think we probably hit our cap with this one. But who knows? We might go crazier. So you really have to take into consideration heroes that can be very mobile. Now, we intentionally made the map mechanics spread you out because we have 3 or 4 different nuke spawning locations at any given point during events. And so it's important to be able to grab all of them. But being able to grab one and then fly with false another one and automatically just also enforce it to one is really powerful. Same with Dahaka, same with Brightwing. Any of the heroes that have that global presence are going to be strong on this Battleground. We also found that since it is a big ground, transitioning lanes is really hard to do it effectively. Because if I transition lanes and I give up soak bottom, but I don't pick up that kill mid lane, it costs him a lot. So make sure that you bring heroes that can guarantee those ganks, that can lock things down, or just be really good at dueling or escaping so that when they do come to transition and kill you, you can, make them pay for it by not dying, and then that transition was wasted. And that really seems to be a huge aspect of this. The second part is how to capitalize on a successful event grab or team fight, because if you get 3 or 4 of the nukes, but you're walking towards that keep, and then you get picked off and you drop 3 of your nukes on the ground, you just gave up that huge reward that you'd already earned. It's one of the reasons why we decided to make the nukes so easy to fire off, because you've already kind of fought over picking them up, that we didn't want you to have a huge risk of casting them. But as the forts go down and as you dive deeper into enemy territory, that risk increases. And we kind of think that's a fun gameplay moment where as you're diving deeper and deeper, you kind of have a higher and higher risk of giving those nukes over to the enemy team. And so basically when you're going to dive with nukes onto the enemy keeps, either be really stealthy, like with a Nova, a Dahaka, a Zeratul, who can get over there and cast it without being at risk, or go with the team. And these are the moments where bringing a team together is actually very vital for this Battleground. And sometimes it can cost you a lot if you're trying to be too much of a an all-star by yourself, right? So,
I think
Praxis. Go for it, Garrett.
I was just going to say, I think you've definitely succeeded in instilling a sense of dread the further you have to push in to drop a nuke.
Good.
That's something I immediately noticed on my first game of Warhead Junction.
Yeah, that was definitely one of our goals with the carrying of it. And then if you get killed, you drop it, because that was not our initial incarnation of the map. And we felt that, like, actually our first incarnation wasn't even getting a nuke from picking it up. It was you had to collect X amount of parts, and then upon collecting that many parts, then your whole team would get nukes.
Oh, geez.
And then it would time out over X amount of time before you fired them. And we liked it. It felt good, but it just it felt like there's something that was missing there, and it didn't feel like that unique, because the event was very standard lane time fight, and then let's move on to event phase where you fight over nukes, and then you have to fire your nuke. So if they pick it up, there's no really holding it or playing a gambit game. And so we definitely liked the transition we made, but it definitely had some interesting gameplay changes, and we actually ended up really liking how they ended up playing too. So
when you're designing these maps, how much does sort of esports, solo queue, and people at home kind of divide the way you think about this design?
I think we always try to make sure that it doesn't break any of those experiences. So, like, our first idea is usually to kind of make sure it doesn't, like, ruin quick match, it doesn't ruin Hero League, it doesn't ruin esports. And if it doesn't do any of those things and it adds a varied, experience that's very different from the other Battlegrounds, I think that's kind of step one and a huge win. And then now, as we're developing more Battlegrounds, we're getting to, like, I think we're at 11 live Battlegrounds now, and I think we're pushing that limit obviously into next year. And we're going to definitely think about Battlegrounds, how that can have different drafting implications. Where on Warhead, you're probably drafting different on Braxis, right? You're definitely considering different heroes. You're considering different compositions as a team. I would love to even push it further where sometimes you might not even consider a tank, or you might not consider a certain type of healer, because it's so important to have a heavy DPS or different things that would really push a team to cause a crazy meta shift on that map alone, because I think that's healthy for the game. It makes players think differently. It challenges them at a healthy direction, because I think when the game gets stale, that's when we start to get worried of, and I think that's one of the things we bring back into Heroes 4, is to add that spice and that variety, and to avoid the game feeling stale. If you have a hero that you love, but you get to play that hero on 11 different Battlegrounds, that hero is going to play 11 different times. And so you kind of get that, that great variety just from that. And if we can make it so some Battlegrounds really make you go, oh, I just play that one hero, I really have to have a backup set of heroes for this other Battleground, I consider that a pretty big win.
And you can already do that with some of your maps. I mean, you got Blackhearts, you can sort of go tankless in. You got your Battlefield Eternity that we've already talked about multiple times. Has there been any heroes that have come down the pipeline that you go, oh no, not them, they'll mess with my map? Like, we have all these manaless heroes. Do those heroes get more powerful on these huge maps, or like Leoric, who's going to spawn in the middle of the map? And is that a concern for you?
I don't think manaless heroes is a huge concern, just because I think we kind of balance them with that as a consideration. I don't know how much, because I think when you take out mana, you would take a look at, how strong this hero is going to be in certain formats. Like Tracer is a good example of a manaless hero. She has no real staying power in a battleground, in a fight. So even though she's manaless, her health pool will push her out of fights quicker than a mana bar would anyway, and so that's not really a concern for her. But I'm sorry, could you repeat the whole question again? I'm sorry, I got kind of stuck on that one element.
No, that's fine. Like, Leoric spawns in the middle of the map, and is that a consideration of them having to hearth back? Like, Samoru if he gets damaged, he's going to have to hearth back if the healer can't take care of him. And then he's got this long walk now. Does that change any elements of the map for you?
I mean, there's definitely heroes that will definitely impact maps, and I think that's a healthy. I mean, one of the things we're looking for is for heroes to have a strong stance in certain battlegrounds. We definitely don't want them to be broken. One of the ones that I think, one of the ones that's probably the most vocal is Sylvanas. Her trait is extremely strong, and so she's a very high consideration for banning or picking on any map that's high and it has like a strong pushing mechanic. And it's so one of the reasons, like with Brax's holdout, we actually made it so that her black arrow doesn't affect any of the Zerg units, so she can't disable them. She's very powerful at doing damage because the Shadow Dagger will spread to all of them, and she can still disable the buildings, but we didn't want her just to shut down an entire wave. It's also why we looked at Arthas, and we wanted to make sure that, we wanted to make sure that Arthas's Sindragosa didn't, disable everything. That's why we ended up making the Ultralisks and the Guardians unstoppable so that they weren't shut down by the Sindragosa. And so, yes, we definitely take a look at heroes and we make certain balance tweaks to the map's mechanics based off of the heroes. Some heroes, that's their design. Their design is to be able to break the maps. I mean, Sylvanas' trait is straight up saying, hey, we're going to break the map mechanics. I hope you're okay with that. And so it's a little, sometimes we can't do it perfectly, and it'll take a little time and some adjustments here and there. But I think it's healthier for the game to have those heroes that are the standouts, and that they can, we can ban them, and that's one of the reasons why we feel like adding bans to competitive heroes was really healthy for the game. And in a quick match, I think having those wacky moments is just kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of the have fun mode anyway, and I think it's kind of healthy.
Well, and one of those things you kind of mentioned right now is someone whose illusions are instantly destroyed by towers, which is a great trait to just stop what we all know would happen otherwise.
That was a problem we had when we were first designing Samuro. We saw that a lot, where people would just constantly spam the images and just to drain ammo, not even to do damage. The damage actually of the images wasn't that high in its initial implementation, but it was just soaking all the ammo out of the towers, and that was just really negative. That wasn't the design game space we were looking for. We were looking for like this almost 3-card Monty gameplay of which of the models is the real hero, and different kind of fun elements from that. And so we didn't want to kind of detract from the gameplay, and so that was one of the reasons why we made that decision.
Okay. Well, we talked quite a bit now about Battlegrounds and specifically how you design around heroes that are specifically good for a Battleground, but what about making Battlegrounds that do kind of punish certain heroes? Do you think you've reached a point now where there are enough Battlegrounds, there are enough heroes that you're comfortable maybe having a Battleground with not as many bushes, so it's not as good to take Dahaka, or even going way further down that rabbit hole, do you think we could ever see a Battleground that didn't have minions? I mean, we now have Brawl, but what about outside of Brawl?
Well, I think the first part of the answer is yes. I'm perfectly okay with a map where Dahaka is maybe a suboptimal choice. I don't want it to be so bad that it breaks the experience for the user, because then for quick match, it's a very punishing moment where I picked Dahaka, I want to learn how to play this hero, and then this map just makes it invalid. I think that's not okay, but being a little bit suboptimal, I think, is okay. Now, no minions. We've tried ideas kind of like that before, and we haven't had any positive results internally. That doesn't mean that we're never willing to try these crazy ideas. Like, we've had a lot of really crazy ideas in the past. I don't think we really want to. I guess we have a lot of talents. We have a lot of heroes and things that would be considered dead, like Sylvanas is like additional damage to minions. If we didn't have any mercs, bribe kind of falls out of the way, right? Like, and a lot of that stuff all of a sudden then becomes dead, and it's almost a trap for the player to pick, and so we would have to like disable it for that map. And those are kind of weird design elements we have to think about when we do something as drastic as cutting out minions. And I don't know if we want to do that. It doesn't mean that we're not willing to try. We've tried lots of stuff and we end up cutting it. It's just we have to definitely develop around those kind of thoughts of how can we get past weird little hiccups that happen. The game has definitely been designed and balanced around fighting minions and getting experience through minions. And so to just cut a very big element like that out of the game is not something to do lightly. And we haven't got a version of that to work. So.
Okay.
Understandable.
I'm assuming Brawl has made that a lot more apparent as well.
Yeah, and Brawl is actually a really great example of we wanted to do this, right? We've had ideas like this, but we couldn't do it before. In Heroes Brawl, we can't. What if we had a map where we just turned off the minions and injected, a whole bunch of different other mechanics? Well, maybe that's the way we do it, right? We try that idea in Brawl. If Brawl allows us to create a fun, unique experience that players love, maybe we'll get it further for a future Battleground.
Nice. Oh, sorry. I thought Kyle was pulling in.
I'm good.
Well, I guess going further about other things. So we talked. We led the show with the orb vending stations.
Sure.
We're going to see more of those. I mean, you seem to link it directly almost to 2-lane maps. So are we kind of guaranteed from now on, as 2-lane battlegrounds are added to the game, that we can pretty much expect to see orb vendors?
I think we can definitely have them on more Battlegrounds. I think they could have worked on Warhead Junction as well, because the map is so large that maybe grabbing regen globes is hard. And so we could have added them in that Battleground as well, as a good example of, it doesn't have to just be 2 lanes. I think it's really more of does it fit the layout? Does it fit the map mechanic? Is it a cool aspect to add another point of contention? That's, even though it's a really minor secondary objective, that it will add a fun element. The reason why it's really fun on Braxis is it actually pulls directly away from the map mechanic. You go on the opposite side of the lane to get this regen globe, which is the exact, away from your the beacon. And so if I'm damaged and I just won my fight over that beacon, I'm now going to go top lane across my lane to get a regen globe to get some more health. But that's at risk. I'm now walking away from my beacon, and so someone could come in and try to ninja it that I just fought so hard for. And that was actually one of the reasons why we liked that element. It really fit the layout, the map mechanic, and it kind of just, meshed with the design. And so that's kind of really the thought. Whereas in Warhead Junction, the reason why we didn't go with it is you have a lot of these one-on-one duels, and we wanted them to feel very meaningful to win or lose. And a regen globe could really tilt that fight one way or the other. And we wanted it to be more skill-based, not who can get to a 45-second timer faster. And so while I guess that could be an element of skill, we really wanted it to be about, I guess, the duel of the heroes, and the duel of the map. And that really kind of was the decision at that point.
What about things
the answer
like...
is yes.
Okay. Gotcha. What about things like terrain and elevation? It's something we haven't really seen explored in Heroes. Is it something you've explored internally?
By terrain.
Well, like trees. Like, we have all these other MOBAs where they have one map, and once every 6 months they'll move a couple trees around so people can run around the woods to, lose a little bit of a line of sight.
Okay. I think we would definitely have to look at our engine when it comes to some of these things. I know elevation was something that we've definitely spent a lot of time considering for the Diablo releases for both of those maps, and we ended up cutting it because it was a lot of cost to us.
Okay, yeah, because there's a lot of playing around with elevation in StarCraft.
Yes, absolutely. And so when we went through the Diablo series of Battlegrounds, and we did not develop that feature, when we got to the StarCraft, we didn't have the production cycles to add that expensive of an element to be ready for the StarCraft Battlegrounds. And I think we can end up getting a lot of similar gameplay around bushes and line of sight blocking from just terrain features. The elevation that kind of comes into play with StarCraft, for example, that you can see the snapshot of the images of the models attacking you, but you don't get to attack back. Or you kind of have in StarCraft 1, you attacked back, but you had a chance to miss. And there's a lot of those kind of elements. And we didn't really have a strong feeling that we needed to add that level of confusion or difficulty or that mechanic to Heroes of the Storm. There's already so much the player has to manage, and we kind of decided not to go in that direction. And without a strong, compelling design mechanic that we wanted to add with elevation, we thought the cost that came with it just for a visual aesthetic really wasn't worth it.
Okay. Yeah, because my brain immediately starts to run away with basically like one-to-one StarCraft examples. It's like, well, then you could have a hero that can move up and down cliffs. But if this was added after the fact, every Battleground that came before it, that hero's trait isn't it's not worth as much.
Right. I mean, go ahead.
Honestly, I'm a little surprised there's less iteration on our old maps. Do you feel like they're kind of locked in place? They're good to go? Maybe some of them are entering maybe a legacy and they'll be removed in the future. Of course, you can't reveal that sort of thing. But we just see all these other MOBAs struggle to define their perfect maps. Heroes has tons of maps. Do some of them end up being kind of like facial animations where it'll be good enough for now?
I mean, I think we like most of our legacy maps. We think they offer, good introductory experiences to the game, like Cursed Hollow. We now have made it so that when new users enter the game, that they don't have to learn a ton of different maps, that they really just get to focus on a few. And Cursed Hollow is their first experience, and we kind of think that's healthy for the game. So I think we're definitely going to use a lot of our maps moving forward. I don't see us cutting like a ton of them or doing like a big sweep and just all legacy maps go. I do think we are going to enter a phase, though, at some point. I don't know if it's the next year or the following, where we kind of look at old maps and kind of do a retrofit, like we have been kind of doing when we do revamp with Heroes. I think our first good example of that is going to be Haunted Mines, because that Battleground is coming back. And so I'm not going to announce when, but that Battleground is going to be coming back. And so when we finally announce that revamp, people will see how much that Battleground has been adjusted and changed to fit the game experience. It's not going to be a Battleground that people had seen, but there's a lot of aspects of that Battleground that were brilliant, and I loved their design. I actually didn't make that Battleground, so I feel safe saying that. But and so but I did work on the revamp, so I wanted to keep all the parts of that Battleground that were so inspiring, like the dual levels and some of the aspects were just really, really cool, and I was really excited to try to save that integrity. But we also had to make adjustments to. We had found some toxic gameplay moments in that Battleground, and we wanted to adjust them. So
now I'm a bit of a tinfoil hatter at times.
Okay.
Is there anything I should be looking at in Brawl that would maybe hint at a new hero or anything like that? I'm honestly surprised I don't go around the maps right now and see like what's this Tall Dream altar about? What's that doing there? And then Alarak can instantly teleport to it or something. Like the Dahaka bush just lined up so perfectly to what was already in the game.
I don't think we have any teases in our. We do have Easter eggs in our brawls. There is one in this current brawl. I don't know if people have actually officially found it or not.
But you got your rocket jump guy in there.
We have him. He's not the only one.
Oh, well, I also found it super creepy that the big, tall, gangly things watch you as you go by. Thank you for that.
That actually existed in all of our Diablo maps. It's just that they were so off deep into game space that a lot of times players missed it. So with this one, we just decided to reuse that element and just make it closer so players wouldn't miss that obviously kind of really fun, creepy experience.
Kyle almost cost us a game by going, guys, oh my God, look at this thing. And we're just like, what? And then 4 of us died. He was the only one alive because he was out of lane staring at that thing, looking at him.
It was Brawl.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. We still won that game. I remember at the time being like, come on, Kyle.
Players should definitely take a look at the stands, though, for additional Easter eggs, because there might be more than just the rocket jump guy in the stands that's special and that stands out.
I really like the murky hats.
There's more than just that, too. But yeah.
Now I'm going to go in there.
Players can interact with to cause a visual change to the game.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Oh, I'm going to go click to my heart's content in the after show games, I think.
And he also dynamically moves around, so you'll have to find him.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I apologize to whoever gets me on their team when we play some games after the show tonight. That's hysterical. Going deeper down Kyle's kind of tinfoil hole, though, I'm going to draw a parallel to Hearthstone here. We always kind of look at Tavern Brawl and Hearthstone and say, oh, they're probably... A lot of these brawls, they're testing things. They're testing things in these brawls for future releases. Now, the brawl we have right now seems pretty on the nose. What would happen if there were no minions and Punishers just randomly attacked you? But can we expect future brawls to push the... I'm sure they're going to push the envelope, but are they going to be testing things for things that
Some
are...
of them definitely
in the
will.
pipeline?
I would definitely say that not all of them will as well, though. Like, we don't have that many original ideas if we're going to be constantly doing a new brawl every week that we want that many ideas with the public through brawls. So it's kind of some of them will be at systemic levels. Sometimes they might be at hero weird levels. If you look at a lot of our, like, if you see the next brawl that's coming out, Hammer Time, I think that's next week, is 5v5 Sergeant Hammer. A lot of crazy that can happen with the different interactions. That one isn't testing anything. That was just fun, right? And we decided, all right, what's the simplest, quickest brawl that we could make that would, drastically change the play experience? And that map was, I think we tested it a few times. Then we went, oh, you know what? This is terrible on this battleground. Let's try it on a new battleground. And that's why we landed on Towers of Doom. And then we just found this like almost weird leapfrog kind of a gameplay experience of trying to, or I guess Frogger is the word I'm looking for, where you have all the missiles different the map at level 20, or you have 10 missiles going all over the place. You're like, wow, I have no idea where I should stand right now. Should I ever go into siege mode with 5 missiles constantly being fired? And then if they wait till they're on the map and then fire another one, then could be upwards of 20 missiles on the map at any given point.
Oh,
it gets kind of crazy. And we just kind of enjoyed that. And so that was just for fun. And then there'll be other ones where we might play around with systemic differences, or a lot of times I'm going to be looking at layout. Personally, I'm going to build a layout and go, I like how this area fits, maybe inject that layout into a new battleground.
Now, I'm sure this isn't true, but I like to imagine that you get out all the little Warhammer trees and actually build the map and have little action figures you push around the field.
Yeah, that's not how we do it. Our engine is pretty amazing. So I get to develop a lot of my stuff in the engine because it's so easy to just test ideas and a better idea of space. Now, a lot of my stuff is going to be really rough looking. I actually really like to use the Garden's tile set because I have such strong, distinct colors to just kind of map out the space I want. And then will take screenshots of that, show it to people, start a lot of conversations, have a lot of arguments about, oh no, this idea is too crazy, or this idea you're not pushing it far enough, and stuff like that. And then once we kind of have a good, fun idea of layout, make sure it ties in good with the mechanics, and the whole experience kind of wraps together, then we kind of push it to the next stage of fully developing it, testing it. And actually I'll go through and I'll do a really horrible prop pass that all the artists will have to delete and do a good one on top of, so that we can test the gameplay, see if we like it, so that we can move forward.
Oh, that's awesome. And we were originally going to ask you if there were any Battleground mechanics that were just too crazy to make into the game, but now I want to expand it to, were there any Battleground mechanics or just layouts that were just too nuts and now they're in their grave?
Yes. I guess the first battle that I got pretty far through, we got to the designing phase, or design testing phase, I think probably 3 or 4 weeks in, that we ended up having to cut, was a Diablo Battleground where both sides had a giant siege weapon, and they were basically trying to escort that giant siege weapon around the map and just blow up the enemy's base. And it had a lot of negative gameplay moments where the losing team was being asked to attack aggressively against the winning team. It took away the defender's advantage, and it wasn't really that fun. But there's definitely aspects of that Battleground that I loved, and so we might revisit that with hopefully a positive spin, so that the defenders can actually successfully stop the snowball that was that Battleground. But I think it was just the idea of it was so epic, and that people loved the Battleground so much. That's why it survived for so long before we decided, you know what, this really isn't healthy for the game. We need to cut it. And then I guess Braxis Holdout was another good example. That one went through a lot of iterations. Originally, we wanted to attack everybody. So while you wanted to collect, originally there was no beacons. It was just both sides were kind of holding out against the Zerg, and the Zerg was just constantly slamming into both sides at full power, and whoever could basically survive the longest was the winner, not really about pushing with the Zerg wave. And it was a really fun map, but in the end, it wasn't really, kind of turned almost a little too PvE, and we wanted more player versus player interaction, and so we ended up having to scale that back and add in the beacons and kind of I guess adhere to our formula a little more. But we really went out of the bounds at the beginning and went, oh my God, let's just see how much fun it would be just to basically kill the players with Zerg over and over again. And it was really fun. We had bunkers, we had Marines that were defending, and you had to almost like use them as a resource to defend. It was really, really fun. But in the end, Heroes of the Storm is about fighting the enemy team. It's about the PvP element. Maybe we can bring that kind of thing back to a brawl, but for a Battleground that didn't fit.
Well, definitely. You've already named 2 features that people are really looking for. Both the escort the payload kind of map, and then, of course, PvE content for Brawl.
Yep.
And that's as far as we'll take that. Well, let's travel. Let's keep going with Brawl questions. Do you think we'll ever see a Brawl arena with less than 10 players?
Absolutely. I've been dying to basically change it. Our engine doesn't really support many more than 5v5. I think we would start cutting out like spectator support and other things to fit that in. So I don't know how much we would be on 5v5 without maybe an engine update, but with less, absolutely. We can do sorts of crazy things.
Okay, so no one-to-one representation of old school Winter Grasp in Heroes of the Storm is what I'm hearing.
Not currently, no.
Okay.
But I definitely think you can see the 2v2s, you can see 3v3s, 5v5s. Those are all fine. You can definitely see us maybe even trying out free-for-all type mechanics. The engine supports that. Like basically anything the engine supports, I want to try at some point. I don't know if you guys will ever see it because it might be a terrible idea, but we're definitely going to experiment with it and see if we can make it fun.
I mean, us specifically, if you need testers, we're fine taking a look at it.
Okay.
We have had a couple people in the chat room ask what your thoughts are on the in Brawl, the strategy of just diving the opponent's well. And in the dev comments and the patch said that there were no plans at this time. Can you elaborate on that?
Those.
So it was your comments. It was just straight up John comments.
We're definitely taking a look at thinking about making them invulnerable. The funny part is I don't, and a lot of this is anecdotal evidence, so I apologize if some of this is incorrect, but in my experience, a lot of times it's to the detriment of their team where one guy will run off and be rogue and kill the Moonwell by himself. A lot of times they end up just feeding lots of points to the enemy team. Like I've had players, I've been playing a lot of Brawl, obviously. And so I've had a lot of times where the enemy team throws the whole game or the match because they're trying to kill that Moonwell. So because they think it's so important, especially since they've read it on Reddit or or the other people are telling them, oh, this is the most important aspect of the map. And we just kind of end up defending the Moonwell and just farming free points. So I don't know if I agree that it is as powerful as a mechanic as they think it is, but I definitely think it creates a toxic gameplay moment because it's not about slamming themselves into the Moonwell to see who can destroy the Moonwell first. It's about whatever the map mechanic is. And so we're definitely listening. I definitely see that people don't like it. They think it detracts from the experience. I tend to agree. So we will be looking to make some changes soon.
Very cool.
You've mentioned a lot about, making sure this is a fun experience. This doesn't take from the defender's advantage. Is there anything that you've had to change just based on to avoid toxicity and like this is just a bad area, people are going to die here too much, or this shouldn't be red because red makes people angry and we'll change it to blue?
Towers of Doom was a good battleground where we had to play very carefully with that space, with the gameplay space, because sometimes you'll be walking forward, but the enemy like flips the base that's behind you, and we don't let you know that. We didn't let you know that very loudly through the art and through the VO and all that elements. Sometimes you'll get caught between two enemy bases, and when you didn't think about it, and it's terrible, right? And so we had to definitely play up the VO, the art. Like if you notice, a lot of the props around those bases will shift, and there'll be a lot of banners that will drop of a different color, so that you're retreating into enemy territory. And that's a good example of we very heavily overdid the presentation there, so that players did not find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place without knowing it. I don't mind if we have spaces as long as we're very clear to the players. This is a bad place to be. You do not want to be here, but we're telling you this. And this is very telegraphed. I think that's fine and healthy as long as we don't force you there. But if you end up there by accident or you don't really know, that's when I think the design's failed. We want to make sure that when you go at risk, that we're warning you, hey, what you're doing is extremely risky. Don't like. A good example also is Battlefield of Eternity. Those side lanes, those like really far side lanes, diving into those are really deep. That comes at a huge risk. Those are really more escape paths. If you're using them aggressively, you're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place more often than not. And so you have to be really careful.
One of the interesting things about the Towers of Doom map is that everything, you're right, is very telegraphed, very loud. But then when it comes to the tunnel opening up, you're kind of like, oh, was that it? It's such a big deal. But half the people ignore the tunnel. Are we going to see more tunnels maybe, or ways to encourage that play?
I think the tunnel mechanic is a very positive design mechanic that was used poorly, and I can say that because I did it. I think it was an element that was almost archaic from its original design of the original Towers of Doom, where it added a very positive element to the gameplay because people kind of end up feeling stuck in their base. And I don't think the new layout with that nice protective barrier around your gates, even like, because if you get pulled into that gate, you just get annihilated by all the cannons on that wall. That kind of really detracted players from camping you enough that you weren't really ever felt stuck in a base. But so at that point when we had identified that, we probably could have cut the tunnel at that point. But now it's kind of in there. It exists. Players still use it. It might maybe a little hidden, but I don't know if it's creating negative gameplay at this point. So I don't feel like worried to pull it. But I probably would have pulled it before shipping it. So that's a good example of something that I like. I think it's a good gameplay element, but we don't need to use it most of the time. It's more just be cognizant of it.
That's fascinating. It makes tons of sense now when you talk about how the objective changed there. If you were not kind of instantly losing when all the towers are gone, all your forts are gone, that tunnel would be extremely important to continue participating.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I like that it's in there, though, because now we're all aware of how it works in case it ever shows up again down the road in new Battlegrounds.
Or Brawls.
Or Brawls. That too.
That's true.
That too.
Tunnels of Doom.
Tunnels, I can think of just adding tunnels to certain maps, and that would have a pretty heavy impact on them. And that'd be a pretty simple mutator.
Yeah. Now we heard that you went and checked a couple of things that don't necessarily fall under your your the hat that you wear, that you may have gone and checked with Ken Eric Hagman, who's been on the show in the past.
Sure.
We wanted to know about questing talents. There's been a lot of them added, a lot of them tweaked in the last few months. Are they achieving their goal?
Somewhat. We definitely like what questing talents are bringing to the game. I think for every iteration of questing talents, we are getting closer to what our main goal is. And so I think we're going to constantly see us adding and updating questing talents through revamps. And so I think they add fun gameplay elements to the game. I think that's healthy for the game. And really overall, you're not going to see us ever shy away from them. We're going to inject them when we think they add talent choice for a hero. I think in the past we made some that maybe didn't do exactly what we were looking for, and so when you see hero revamps come down the line, you'll see the questing talents also get revamped.
Okay, I'm very interested to see that.
Sorry, that was the answer I got for you.
No, that's great. How about some personal questions that might sound like we're baiting for announcements, but we're totally not. We promise. And the first is of course, what heroes are on the top of your personal wish list, and with a giant asterisk of this does not mean they're in development or coming soon.
Okay, I like dwarves, so I like playing Falstad. I like playing Murden. I play a dwarf in World of Warcraft. I think all of my characters are dwarves currently because of as soon as I got here, I got a lot of Blizzard bucks, and I was able to swap all my characters' races. Since,
that's awesome.
I think along those lines, someone like Hemet Nessingway would be really fun, or Nessingway, whatever, would be really fun for me to have. I think an interesting sniper character that doesn't cloak would be an aspect. I think that would be probably really high on my list. I know I've sent a couple pitches that have been shot down, so we'll see if that ever comes to fruition. I know I also like the idea that he kind of is really good at hunting big games, so you can play a lot of fun elements with that.
He just hard counters Rexar.
Yeah, kind of funny just to be able to shoot the bear. Trying to think my other personal favorite. So personal favorites. Things I want to see that don't exist for our game. I'm sorry. When I first read that question, when you had sent it to me, I thought it was ones that existed in the game. I'm a pretty big McCree fan in Overwatch.
Oh, nice.
I play a lot of him, so I think I would enjoy getting that hero into the game. I don't know exactly how we would design him. I haven't really spent any thought there, but I think having just an awesome cowboy with a lot of funny. His VO is already funny in Overwatch. I couldn't imagine his interaction VO-wise with some of the other heroes.
Oh, I just want to hear him have a conversation with Raynor in the worst way.
I want to see him talk to Murky. He'd be so confused. And then Murky just bubbles when he tries to do high noon. That would just be amazing.
Oh, that's great.
I actually am. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing at that. That's amazing. I love the avenue you have taken us down.
I just like really bizarre interactions, and I think the fact that we're pulling from all of the different Blizzard universes creates those the best. And so like that's what I'm really looking forward to is just when you see like, I mean, our writer just and Valerie just do some crazy quirky stuff with the interaction between heroes, and I just love to see what they do. And so as we add very bizarre races or heroes to the game, like when Alarak joined the game, I loved his view. I loved how he talks smack to his healer, like, oh, is that all you can do? And I'm like, oh, that's so good. Other people I know are a little less excited, but I think it's exciting, so I think it's really fun. So any character to really add basically a kind of a comical relief to the game, because sometimes it's I'm a very competitive gamer, so I take it very heavily when I lose or win. I try not to rage, but it's that's why I usually don't type, because I avoid any of that. But whenever I get like a funny interaction between two heroes, it kind of obviates my like, oh, okay, this is just a game, this is fun. It's also why I loved working on Brawl, because just I never cared about winning or losing. It's just about the fun, weird interactions. I still think 5v5 Nova is my favorite Brawl experience, and so when the first time I saw that in I think Temple Arena, I was like, I cannot believe that we have 20 Novas running on the screen because of all the decoys, and no one knew who to shoot. And I was like, okay, this is what Heroes Brawl is all about. And so we actually ended up making that into it's a Brawl all onto its own that you'll see later on. Like, I guess that's really what I want. So it may be any sort of funny, comical character that when you interact with Arthas or any of the very serious characters, kind of just alleviates that. I think is a really fun addition to Heroes.
No, I really like that, and I'm looking very forward to that all Nova Brawl you just mentioned, because last week, so this was before Brawl was live, we did our after show games with our viewers on the PTR, and we did the Punisher Brawl, and we actually got the 5 versus 5 Illidan. And Kyle, probably you could call me out on this. I wasn't sold on Brawl when it was announced, or Arena was originally called, and I was like, it looks fun, but this is what I play Heroes for serious competitive 5v5 PvP. I don't need a silly mode. Doing the 5v5 Illidan last week 100% sold me on the Brawl. It was absurd, especially at the moment, because we were all on Discord. I can't remember who it was who suggested. I don't think it was you or I, Kyle. It just goes, everyone take hunt, everyone take the hunt, and just call out one target. And it was just this raucous cheering. It was fantastic. I loved it.
I mean, I think that's why we ended up doing Sergeant Hammer, because when we got a 5v5 Hammer and both sides took the missile, we were like, oh my god, this has to be a Brawl where that's just what you're doing for the entire experience. And so that's what Hammer Time kind of. Actually, Arena was the birthing place for a lot of ideas for other Brawls, and I think we maybe overdid it, but we have a lot of 5v5 of the same hero Brawls because they're just so goofy and the interactions are so fun that I think it just kind of creates a very fun, comical experience.
Yeah,
and if you want to be stuffy about it, there's a lot of gold to get there. So
oh yes,
serious players want to go in there.
Yes, very very much so. But it's just a blast. It really is a lot of fun. So I'm happy it has come to the game, and I'm excited to see what else comes down the pipeline as far as what the Brawls are concerned. So
I mean, it gives us a platform to create any idea we want, because our previous platform was restricted by like you're saying, no minions. I don't know if I can get away with that because we have so many talents or heroes built around that. Brawl, I can just cut those heroes out of the game. That's fine. Let's just see how it plays. So
you made some smart choices too, because Kharazim still gets a healing punch talent.
Yes.
And those sort of essentials are still worked in there. Though I'm sure you've heard it. We all want to slap with their fight. We all want to choose one Abathur that goes out with 4 hats on him.
So the funny thing about Abathur is he's actually technical engine. Symbioting on top of a symbiote does bad things to our engine. So we might actually introduce him at some point. It just requires us to spend a little bit of time on engineering to get that to be functional. And so I'm not saying no. It was one of those things. Is like, is this high priority? No, unfortunately, it's not. So we'll see how it goes. But at some point, we might try it.
I'm sure 1 Cho 4 Gulls is the same department.
I don't know. That one actually might be better. I don't know. I'd have to look into everything. It's funny because in game development in general, and I'm not even talking about just this game, but all game development, in my experience, and I've been doing it for about 12 years, is everything that seems really easy isn't. And some things that is like, oh, way too hard end up being like 2 days worth of work. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I get a lot of free wins, but I think I'm not going to get them. And I get a lot of, oh, wow, actually that's 2 weeks of work. Oh, all right. I guess we're not going to do that one right now. We'll do that one later when we can slate it. Because it's 2 weeks where we're like, I can't ninja a guy from a project for, 2 weeks. I can do it for 2 days sometimes. Like Lost Cavern was actually me just kind of forcing that in. I just ended up making it in my free time. And then an artist kind of decided to, I'm going to artify it in my free time. And they were like, well, we have this map. Can we release it to the public? And that's how we got Lost Cavern. And so we just kind of ended up putting out in Quick Match, or not in Quick Match, into custom maps, just because we wanted to support the ARAM experience that players were already doing with the whole ARAM channel. And so we were like, here, I see there's a huge, need inside of the community for this, and we wanted to support. So that's why we decided to just kind of ninja it in there, and that was kind of a fun thing to do.
You already said you get a bit heated about some of your games, so we know you're passionate, but that's awesome that you took the time to create that.
Yeah, I mean, Heroes of the Storm is a great project to work on because everyone on my team is extremely passionate. I mean, every designer that I work with always wants to basically create the best possible thing. They all come at it from unique perspectives and have fun ideas, and so it's really just kind of finding a way to take all that passion and put it into a very constructive way and create some fun products.
Well, John, you've been so incredibly generous with your answers and your time. So we'll definitely we'll wrap this up for you so you can go and get properly prepared for BlizzCon.
Sure.
But before you go, if folks want to keep up with you or anything, are you on social media? Is there anywhere folks can follow you?
Well, I usually participate in a lot of our Q&As or AMAs on Reddit. So whenever there's any sort of Battleground thing that's being released, I will always usually try to find time to participate in. I don't think I actually have a Twitter account. If I do, it's years old and I haven't actually visited it. So unfortunately, I'm not a very active social media person. I think Blizzard is going to slowly make me do that. So at some point, I will start participating more and more. I will be walking around at BlizzCon. I will sometimes be shuffled in the back to do some interviews. But overall, if you find me at BlizzCon, feel free to come up, talk to me, and we can jam on some ideas and some fun stuff. And then I'm a lurker, so I lurker on the forum, I lurker on the Reddit, and if I see any cool ideas or stuff, I mean, I've taken ideas from Reddit or from the forums, and I'm like, oh, that's a great brawl, and I've jotted those down. So if you're not getting direct interaction with me, you'd be surprised that I'm actually I consume a lot of people's chat about Heroes of the Storm.
Well, awesome. So everyone get in those AMAs and don't be afraid to say hi at BlizzCon. John, thank you again so much for your time, and definitely share our thanks with Bethany and the Heroes community team for putting this together.
Absolutely, will do.
All right, well, have a good one. Take care. Well, that was just delightful.
That was cool to get some insight, not only just for what's coming in the future a little bit, kind of snuck some in there, but also just over the whole course of the game. I mean, maps kind of define this game. I think they're still working on 2 on League of Legends. Don't quote me on that.
I couldn't, and I couldn't refute it because I really don't pay attention to that game in any way, shape, or form. But I'm trying to fix the overlay real quick. There it is.
Important stuff.
Good and back to normal. Just the 2 of us, nice and cozy.
Ooh.
And well, if you're ready, sir, we can wrap this up with a couple emails before we go get our brawl on once again with our live viewers.
Let's do that.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com. And before we take the first one, we want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/ITN for supporting us this episode and every episode of Into the Nexus. We don't have sponsors anymore, just patrons. Just you guys directly supporting the show. So if you'd like Into the Nexus, consider backing us over at patreon.com/ITN. On this episode, let's thank TJ, last initial D, Adam D, Jesse FS, Andrew, no last name or initial given, Morgan R, Jonathan T, and Dear Ice Bar. I struggle.
I think that was pretty good,
to
man.
pronounce.
Nice job.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for making me feel good. Anyway, again, send those emails to itncast@gmail.com. And Our first email comes to us from Hammerhand, who writes, "Hey, Kyle and Garrett, my roommate Brockness and I," Brockness, shout out. He calls in almost every episode when we have a call-in episode, and I were cruising around through stats on the hot slogs after a Heroes of the Storm session with friends, and we noticed something pretty disparaging about healer win rates on hot slogs. As of the 17th of this month, October, only 37% of the support heroes in the game have a win ratio that is higher than 50%. Simply put, only 3 of the 11 supports in the game have a win rate of at least 50%. And this is where we go, asterisk, this is hot slogs only. This might not necessarily reflect the internal statistics of the Heroes team.
Consult your doctor before.
Yes, exactly. Consult your doctor before taking hot slogs too seriously. Anyway, he continued on saying, "The support spot, in my experience, is the most difficult to fill when it comes to Hero League. He who shall fill usually fills as healer. I think these stats are further proof that Blizzard needs to address the support role and its appeal as a whole. What do you guys think about these stats, and what do you think they should do?" I want to spin this and and kind of take it more down to BlizzCon rather than a lot of talk about BlizzCon. We've only got one more episode before we break for BlizzCon. What do we want to see? Are we hoping to see more supports? Is that high on your list, Kyle?
As a tank player, tanks are what I'm most concerned about right now, because you think about it's the exact same support problem. Maybe not highlighted win rates because we have a couple more, but ETC, Johanna, and Muradin have the kitchen sink, in my opinion. I think they did a good job with Muradin removing Unstoppable from Dwarf Toss to make him more interesting. But even Chen, Rexar, of course, but Diablo, these guys are struggling to hold on to a front line.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, supports and warriors together to weasel my way out of the question I asked of us are the two things I think I get the most excited for. Because they bring a very specific thing to the table. For whatever reason, I feel like it's been forever since we got one, even though I know Ariel is still relatively new. Though I would defend the support role. I think it has been interesting. I think Oriole was a huge step in the correct direction. And he said that it's the most difficult to fill. I do agree with that to a certain degree. But saying that it needs to be necessarily addressed or that they need to up the appeal of the role, I think they have. I think Ariel, she's so interesting to play. And again, I'm definitely getting to my own personal biases here, because before that it was Lieutenant Morales, and I probably spent 2 months talking about how I just didn't want to play Morales because I was bored. And Ariel came in and it was the exact opposite. She's so incredibly active. She's so interesting. She brings so much to the table as a support hero, but she's also difficult to play. It's a high stress environment playing Ariel. You're one way to heal people, and if you mess it up, it's all on you. And I don't think that's just Ariel specifically. It is stressful to be the support. It is on you to keep your team alive.
If we're talking strictly BlizzCon and what I want to see, let's think about the sort of structure of a team fight and what's actually the deciding factor there. It's really great that we've continued to fill out with Samuro the ambush category, because that's the exciting stuff that happens in between matches, between the battles, the full team scale things. I mean, same with our burst mages. When we only had Kael'thas and Jaina, all the teams start moving around the same. Until we got Greymane, you had Volley, you had Raynor, everything kind of moves around the same. The tanks and supports sort of revolve around those front guys. So I understand why we filled them out a little less most recently, because they're not the deciding factor in how the team functions, unless, of course, it's Mosh Pit, and then everything starts to revolve around that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I don't know. I think it just takes a certain mindset. I don't think everyone necessarily wants to play support. I get if you don't want to play a support, but I do find that amusing, and I think that's where the core issue comes from that Hammerhand's kind of speaking to, is that I agree with him. Typically, if you're a last pick and no one is excited about playing a support, although right now with Malfurion, I'm seeing him grabbed very early, so I'm not seeing this issue as much.
Sure.
But I think it's just because Malfurion is a relatively easy healer to understand, and now he is good. So just about anyone can play him. But I think for the most part, it is strange. I think you do have to be a certain type of gamer to enjoy playing support in Heroes of the Storm, and I find it odd that it's typically relegated to, sorry, you got last pick, you got to fill, got to play support, buddy, and that person might not want to play support. But I implore everyone, playing support is fun, and there's some really fun supports to play, so just maybe practice them a little more.
I think it might be overtaxing to play to support in honesty, because let's look at my tanking situation. Johanna is the catch-all. If I have to early pick a tank or slightly informed because of blinds, Johanna is the kitchen sink. I'm going to take that. Decent damage, great crowd control, can hold the front line. I want to go Diablo because my passion. Haven't been able to recently. Leorc's sitting there, and I've got a couple of other side things. But whatever I pick as tank, as long as it has that kit, it's good enough. ETC, Johanna, Muradin, things change a little bit, but ultimately they're to do the same role. Whereas I feel like with supports, you got to play them all, perhaps, because Malfurion lost Rampant Growth, which gave him a little bit more burst healing. That now defines his personality more, but it means he is bad in certain situations. I don't want Morales all the time, but there are certainly situations where I go, oh my goodness, Brightwing is not right here. Let's have Morales. It might just be too taxing to play so many different kinds of heroes.
I agree with that to a certain degree, but I think it's fine if you're not pushing the cutting edge, if you're not Diamond or beyond. I think it's absolutely fine to just find a few handful of supports that you're good at, because because of the way draft works, there are going to be games where you have to support. So you might as well enjoy what you're supporting as.
That's true.
And there are enough of them where you usually won't be shoehorned into a support that you completely 100% cannot stand playing. But,
well, I love Lily's kit, but I can't tell you I'm very passionate about the feeling of throwing cups. Poor Rhaegar, though, man. Down at 45%. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, it's just... I still like him. I'm still fine. I'm still totally okay picking Rhaegar. I got nothing against him, but... I don't know, it's understandable. He was so on top for so long, and there was such a specific way to play him, and I still think people who consider themselves main Rhaegars have, for the most part, it's hard to get over that, myself included.
Oh, I love him.
I loved being so aggressive back in the day.
Well, and Rhaegars, when they're holding the lane all by themselves, and you're like, yeah, they're fine. When Malfurion ends up in a lane by himself, you're like, oh, the world is going wrong. But some of these Rhaegars are such champs. I love running into them, and I'm sad that some of the simple parts of their kit, like getting a butt bite off, is so difficult these days. Yeah.
I really want to see a Discipline Priest from World of Warcraft. I want a mix. I want a shield. Maybe don't make it as good as Tassadar's. And then a heal that you can do either damage or healing with.
Well, Tassadar is definitely on my mind recently because Samuru, I think he needs to be manaless. And that Storm needs to do a bit more damage, because you would think a reveal that knocks him out of a buff with the movement speed, no less, and any other talents you go in there. That is powerful against Samuru. But 12-second cooldown versus a 40-second cooldown on the Oracle doesn't line up. And the Storm is so weak, you can't actually tell which one's an illusion.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but I also don't play a lot of Tassadar. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that Oracle should be 12 seconds, but it shouldn't be 40 in this post-Samuro world that we live in. Which
and maybe he shouldn't worry about mana, because you end up going a talent at level 1 to avoid that problem in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Sign me up, Kyle. I'm in. I agree with you. I'd love to see that.
Sweet.
So... What hero? What's since we already cracked that egg? What hero is on the top? What do you want to see the most from BlizzCon in terms of heroes, hero reveals?
Oh, I still want my Dreadlord, of course.
My Kel'Thuzad for me.
And infested skins, please.
More infested skins, yes. For love. I actually, you know what? Forget Kel'Thuzad. I will give up Kel'Thuzad if I can finally get a cool Brightwing skin. I want Hydralisk Brightwing. I want little mini Deathwing Brightwing. Just any.
Yeah.
I want a badass one. I don't like her master skin. The monkey skin gives me nightmares. My favorite skin is just the dark skin tint on her basic skin, because it looks like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. And I just want something. I just want something else, man. I just want something else. I'm tired of getting into our post games as Brightwing, and everyone's like, Gary, I thought Brightwing's your jam. Your skin game is weak. And I'm just like, no, her skins are just weak.
And she actually does great damage, which is fascinating. Because with all the sparkles, it seems a little pillowy.
I think that's the point. The entire point of Brightwing, Kyle, is to be adorable but be a murderous killing machine.
Mm.
Even though she's a support, but yeah. Going back down what John DeShazer was saying, which is, he kind of went on that tangent about just the fun interactions when you cross universes, and that's what I love. They've nailed that with Brightwing. So,
I agree.
we got another email from Lori, and Lori writes, hi guys. First off, thanks for a great podcast. I've been listening for a few weeks, but I've learned so much already. I didn't participate in Hero League last season, but I'm giving it a try now, and I placed into Bronze 4. Since then, I've fallen to Bronze 5, and I feel like every game is a quick match with a slightly better comp. In other words, it's a cesspool of hate and vitriol full of players who suck. And hey, I'm one of them. We all failed to the same level. Anyway, I know I need to practice to get better and advance, but what do you recommend as far as quick match versus unranked for practice purposes? I know if I absolutely want to practice a specific character, that quick match is probably better, but unranked should mean better team composition and therefore a better simulation of a ranked match. Then again, at my level, it's not like I can lose rank, so maybe practicing in Hero League might be just as productive.
I think you're good with quick match if you're working on assassins.
Yes.
If you're going to work on tank and support, go in unranked. But really, what is a bronze tank or support going to enable you to do?
I really like practicing supports in quick match, actually, because if you can, this is a lot. It depends on the support. But take Monk for example. Knowing when to land a divine palm, quick match is a great place to learn that.
Mm-hmm. That's true, and it's a gauntlet. Do Brawl and pick Monk. There's the best way to learn how to divine palm.
Well, yeah, but Brawl, you don't have as many choices on the hero that you get, and you will have even less choices on certain brawls, being aka 5 hammer on 5 hammer, guaranteed. No, I really like practicing support in quick match, because I feel like if you it's cheesy, but if you can support there, you can support anywhere. You can just figure it out, and if you can mentally prepare yourself for the sheer wackiness of quick match, going into a bronze level Hero League with people who are yelling at each other, it's going to roll right off your back. It'll be great.
Well, and in quick match or even on ranked, you should be looking for the exact same things. You should be checking the tab screen anytime you can to see who's top damage on your team, who's top damage for the enemy team. If you are assassin and one of your other fellow assassins is top damage, well above you, it just support them. Take a shot for them. Die for them. There's so many cool interactions that happen in quick match and so many different talent choices you should be making that I find it kind of funny how much people dislike the system sometimes. It really has its own personality, and I love it because I get to take things I'd never ever do. Like my Asmodan, which has been well documented, and my horrible Asmodan build that I love ever so much in quick match.
Yes. Yeah, but really, I think either is fine. It just depends on if you want to practice your draft and you want to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to always get the hero that you want to play. You should absolutely be doing unranked. If you want to practice a specific hero, I think you're fine in quick match. With me, the caveat is Warriors. If I'm going to tank, I really want to do it in a draft scenario.
I think you can get by in quick match, just like your supports there, with the 3 we mentioned earlier, ETC, Johanna, and Muradin. But if you're going to go another one, probably good to make sure there's whatever that counter or anti-counter is on the enemy side.
Absolutely. So best of luck to you, Lori, and thanks for tuning in. Relatively new listener. Glad you're enjoying it. We didn't even have story time at the top of the show, Kyle. We did our Smurfs just before the show, and we both promoted ourselves.
We did. Yep, Smurf is up to gold 2, is it?
I'm gold 2, you're gold 3, right?
That's it, yeah.
We're a rank apart, I guess. Yeah, we got in and just bam, 3 wins in a row. Decisive wins.
Well, some struggles. I mean, nearly top damage Johanna. I was very proud of that, but it shouldn't have happened with Vala on our team.
Well, yeah, I'm not looking to gift horse in the mouth, Kyle.
It's fun. Smurfing's fun because you can be so impactful on any character you pick. On tanks, extreme impact. Right now I am seesawing wildly between Diamond 2 and 3 on my own account, back and forth, and it it's a bizarre change. Of course, everyone who places at the highest possible place goes into Diamond 3. So if you're above the middle point of Diamond 3, you are a winner in a sense because you've won more than you've lost. But oh man, the variance between Muradins really is what was throwing me off this week. Here comes a bad Muradin, a good Muradin. Oh no, he's real good. He must be visiting from Masters. Oh no.
So that explains your surprise in what was it? Where were we on? Battlefield of Eternity when you go, wow, this is good Muradin. He's doing exactly what I want him to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. You just never really know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun, and that's part of the joy of solo queuing, why it has its own language, is getting to get in there and discover, is Vala bad? Is Kerrigan going to carry? Do we need to maybe put that Divine Shield on something random, like the Anubarak, and just let Kerrigan kind of go? Those are fun decisions. That's what I love about that environment so much.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Got to thank Team One and Blizzard and John DeShazer one more time for putting together this interview. We really had a good time speaking with John. BlizzCon is right around the corner. We are doing a meetup. We'll be meeting up at the Bullmore Lanes at the Anaheim Garden Walk Mall, which is right around the corner from the Anaheim Convention Center. The Thursday night before BlizzCon, starting around 8 or 9. We still haven't decided on time. It's usually 8 o'clock. Kyle, you're on a Heroes panel, so you'll probably be a little fashionably late.
Oh, of course. I would be anyway.
Well, it's just because you're so fashionable.
Exactly.
Indeed. Other than that, if you also want to hang out, come on Thursday night to World of Podcasts, because I am on a Hearthstone panel and you are on a Heroes panel.
That's true, and that is under Con Before the Storm.
Indeed it is. It'll be at the Hilton, which is connected to the Anaheim Convention Center. Very hard to miss.
And then, of course, Saturday is going to be the big esports day. Friday is going to be a lot of running around. I like to hit up all the little stations, get my photo taken at all the weird little places they set up. So it's such a carnival nowadays as compared to even 4 or 5 years ago. It's so fantastic. But Saturday is when we'll be locking in to that crowd. And I'll be tweeting. Follow me on Twitter at Kyle Ferguson, because I'll be tweeting so we can all triangulate our positions and get a nice little A-move crew going.
Yeah, you won't be locking in too early, though. We have a Heroes of the Storm interview at 12:30.
And when have esports events ever started on time?
Very true. Very, very true. Well, I'm very glad the whole A-Move crew is coming this year, because Saturday, I don't think I'm going to be able to see any esports. I am booked all day for some things I can talk about, like the Heroes interview, and some things I can't announce yet. But I will say this. If you like Overwatch and you like hearing me talk, there's something cool happening on Saturday.
Wow.
Yeah. So more on that. I believe there's an official announcement this week at some point. I will not be quiet about it. So don't worry, you won't miss it. And other than that, it's thank you everyone for tuning in this episode. Thanks again to Blizzard for the interview. Huge thanks to our patrons and our Patreon producers, Declan H and Cheesy Bob. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/ITN. You can catch us live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/AMoveTV or over at alphageekradio.com if you want to catch the live stream on the go. Also, huge thanks to Gorath, who did our intro music, and Brian Griffith, who did our outro music. Very talented musicians. Got to thank them for their work. Kyle, where can folks find you?
You can find me at Kyle Ferguson on Twitter, youtube.com/Kyle Ferguson, and of course, KyleFerguson.com, 2 S's in Ferguson, for Here's the Storm Lessons.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art, and everything I do can be found at amove.tv. Embrace the Spoilers is back. Jocelyn and I are getting together to talk about Westworld. We have also launched a Kickstarter, so more information on that can be found on Embrace the Spoilers or on amove.tv. If you're interested, just search for Embrace the Spoilers wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Check that out. And we've got codes for you. As always, use the code ITN over at doghousesystems.com to get a free solid-state drive added onto your gaming system. I love it. Using mine right now. It's what I'm talking to you on. It's what I'm going to be playing Heroes on here in just a second. And you can also use the code ITN over at tweakedaudio.com. They make earbuds, headphones. They're wonderful. I have many. You can use the code ITN over there to get 30% off and free shipping off of your entire order. It also works across the pond if you're in Europe. So check them out. Thank you everyone again for tuning in, and we will see you next week. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.